Has all this rain been good for you this spring?
Yeah, without rain, the jumps just dry up and crack and fall apart. And if the soil's not wet, you can't stack it and it doesn't stick. So yeah, we take all the rain we can get.
Todd, take one marker.
Set? All right, cool. So I want to start off with a philosophical question. What do you think the phrase putting down roots means to you?
Putting down roots, logically, it means to me that it's going to be your foundation before you can grow. You got to put roots in the ground, and that provides the base for support. So, I think looking at it philosophically, you can't be established and follow a path that you want to follow without being grounded and being stable and having somewhere to call home. So putting down roots is like, where's your house? Where do you live? Where do you come from? Who are you? So
yeah,
I think roots help. They drive who you are and where you're going to go. And it's real important to have roots. You're lucky if you do. Some people move around all over and they don't have a place to call home.
Does it take a commitment, or does it take work, putting something into it to have roots?
No, I think, roots are, a lot of times it's where you're born, who you're with, where you call home. But, if you're speaking about a certain industry or a sport or anything, that you're passionate about, having roots in one place lets you, like I said, grow and have another place to go from. You can always go back to your roots. It builds your character. It kind of molds your mind and guides your ideas. You always revert back to, where am I from? What are my core beliefs?
Mm-hmm. So where are your roots?
Oak Cliff, Texas.
Oh, okay.
Just south of Dallas. So I'm real proud to be from there, and it's an amazing place. It's a lot different now, but being brought up in that area, it was very diverse, and so that had a big impact on my roots. The people I was around, the neighborhoods, and just the vibe within that city was a lot of hardworking people, and it was a draw for minorities. Oak Cliff is known for producing some of the most amazing musicians out of Texas. There's guys going back to the 1800s like Blind Lemon Jefferson that came out of there, and obviously Stevie Ray. My family lived in the same neighborhood with him. But yeah, Oak Cliff's where my roots are out.
Yeah. So what brought you to Austin?
BMX in school. But when I lived in Dallas, back in the day in the late 80s, there wasn't a lot of trails. So I always enjoyed the dirt jumping aspect of BMX. So there wasn't a lot of that in Dallas. And, real quickly, 9th Street got really popular. And so it was a BMX tourist destination. So I started coming down here and just fell in love with the city and decided to go to school and, made 9th Street my second home.
How did 9th Street get started?
Well, I don't think the city wants you to know exactly how it got started, but it was initially a flat park. There used to not even be a road through Duncan Park. So they separated north and south side. And on the south side, it was just flat, covered in grass, and there was like 3 piles of dirt. And so some old school BMXers started riding over these piles of dirt, and little trails developed. There was a crew of guys on cruisers, like 24-inch bikes that, cruise around town. And Old Man Parrish, Jeff Parrish, was really big into that, and he was a racer, and he's one of the founding people of that place. But I think Carl Lean and Marty Chrisman and some of those other guys were the first people to really put shovels in there. So it started with just 3 piles of dirt that somehow magically got in the middle of this flat park. But as those piles of dirt turned into jumps, it started drawing people in. And so then people started building more jumps, and it just really grew from there. But there was always something special about that place. Before it was dirt jumps, just the location. You're right in the heart of Austin, but you're right by the creek, but it had a draw before we ever got there. So there's something special about that place. And over the years of digging there, I've dug up so many artifacts, like old bottles and all these things. So at some point, probably 70, 80, 100 years ago, there was a farmhouse down there. Someone had a house because, you dig down a couple of feet and you're finding all of these old personal items and just really odd stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it started with a few piles of dirt.
Right.
And then how did it go from there to a legit BMX destination?
It was a long process. One of the things about, building dirt jumps is, you do it all by hand. It's shovel by shovel. It's back-breaking labor. And, most people aren't going to do that. I mentioned earlier that, nowadays you just go to the skate park. It's already built for you. You don't have to maintain it. It's always running, So how 9th Street grew from just being 3 piles of dirt that were in the park was through people's passion. People found it and they found a good location. We have shade down there, a little bit of access to water. So people that were passionate about dirt jumps started digging there. And then over the years, it just grew and grew and grew. And so now there's hundreds of piles of dirt and a lot of jumps and very diverse things. So we've, kind of replicated a skate park out of dirt down there because we like dirt better.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a huge group effort. It's all volunteer work and we're all pretty much on the same page, but everyone's got their own take. There's no true organization behind this nonprofit labor, but everyone respects the hard work of other people and everyone has the same goal. We're down there to have fun and ride our bikes, but the art, if you will, of building bike jumps is really rewarding too. So, working with the dirt, you're just like a little kid playing in the dirt. Everyone loves doing that. And we still advocate for that. When the kids come down, it's like, hey, if you're under 12, there's no rules, just don't get hurt, Climb on the jumps, do whatever you want. But yeah, how it grew into what it is today is through a lot of labor, through a lot of diverse people.
Mm-hmm. And just, I think some people might think that you just throw dirt in a big pile, like at a construction site. Can you talk about like how you have to really take it down? Like there's more to it, right?
Yeah, if you're gonna make a little small jump or roller, it's a few wheelbarrows. But if you've ever gone to hard flat ground and pulled out a shovel and tried to fill a wheelbarrow, it's really hard to do. So it's all wheelbarrow and shovel. So ideally you're gonna wait until the soil's moist. It's easier to dig and the moisture helps the dirt stick together. You can't have a pile of loose dirt. You need a perfectly flat, smooth surface. And so, 25 years ago, jumps were just real skinny and not really perfect. And nowadays, I think through the popularization of trails and magazines, everyone really takes pride in it. So now jumps are like perfectly sculpted art form. So you make a giant pile of dirt and you have to put this proper transition or curve on it. And that's a skill in itself. You don't have any guides, you're doing it by hand and trying to make this perfect transition to keep everything flowing. It's really hard to do without surveying and doing all this. If you jump here and you land one, how far do they need to be apart? So you have to make all these calculations. There's a lot of physics involved, but no one ever looks at it like that. So make a big pile of dirt, shape it, and then pack it in real good. You got to get it packed so that you can ride on it, so it's hard and stays solid over time.
So it's one thing to build these like dirt jumps, but how do you develop a community, or how did that community develop? Because I feel like it's a community.
Definitely. I think the community at 9th Street developed, through people's passion and love of riding. But also, I think it was the mentality that was down there. The guys that originally were down there and founding that place had this vibe about him. I mentioned Old Man Pierce. And, he really made a huge impact on me. He had a very, very intelligent person, but very laid back and fun-loving, and nothing got to him, and everything was a big joke. And he'd give you a hard time if he loved you. And if he didn't like you, he wouldn't talk to you, So people were always taken aback by the group of us that were down there. We're just constantly giving the other riders a hard time and all that. And people would ride through in front of the bench and we'd be yelling at them and cutting up. And then if someone wasn't really in the clique or on the vibe, then just got real quiet. So people kind of misconstrued that heckling as, negative when it was the exact opposite. If we like you, we're going to give you a hard time. So yeah, I think, what draws people down there partly was that passion, but the vibe that Pierce and people like Mike Esparza and Greg Tate put out. There's a lot of energy. People that do this are from all walks of life, but they all have this drive. And, it's inherently dangerous sport, so everyone's had a lot of concussions and broken bones, so there's a lot of commonality amongst this diverse group of people. But I think, you know, the vibe that was put out by those first people there really permeated the BMX scene in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so would the BMX scene in Austin, Texas exist if it wouldn't have been for 9th Street, or would it be different?
Yeah, it would still exist, but it would be totally different. You know, 9th Street was a huge draw for so many people to move to Austin internationally because of those trails. They're not the best trails in the world at all. They're not the biggest, but it's the vibe that's there. You always have fun. So it drew all these people in. And so without 9th Street, you probably wouldn't have this draw. It may have not been such a big scene. But what 9th Street has done is brought people in internationally and people that are passionate and driven. And it's led those people building other trails around Austin that are amazing and way better and bigger than 9th Street, but people opening bike companies here. And, you know, the outside impact of those trails is, you know, people making money, starting companies, building other trails, you know, relationships. There's been so many people that have met and fallen in love at 9th Street, and so many people that have had relationships fall apart because, oh my God, you're gonna spend all your time at the trails, riding your bike and doing this, you know? So it's really interesting, all those other aspects outside of just riding your bike about that place.
A lot of the parks that we're kind of looking at or talking about are located around a physical space, like a neighborhood. And 9th Street is a little bit different, it seems like. How is 9th Street still like an important community park, but it's, I mean, or would you consider it a neighborhood park, or would you not? I don't really consider it a neighborhood park myself.
Yeah, I mean, in a way it's a neighborhood park. There's not too many residents down there, but back in the day it was more of, you know, part of the original Austin Neighborhood Association. And, you know, thanks to the work of people like Ted Siff, who established that, he knows what it was like back in the day. But it's a community park. It draws people in because of the central location. And it's just a really good place to be. Like, there's something special about it. You know, they started putting up all those condos, and the first thing they put up was that giant apartment building in the Nakona. And so when that was going up, we were like, oh no, we can't see the sunset anymore. And, you know, what's going to happen with all this? And so most of those people are really supportive, but when those apartments were first built, there was a couple of residents in that apartment that immediately decided they didn't like our activities. They'd see a campfire down there at nighttime, or, you know, there's a dog loose in the park, or there's cyclists on the sidewalk waiting to ride their bikes. So this one lady in particular made it her goal to get us shut down. And she would call 911 every day. She was in her 60s and would get in screaming matches with 15-year-old kids. And she was a real thorn in our side for a couple of years. And the amount of energy she put into being negative and trying to shut something down that was there way before her, that was totally positive, that helps the kids in the community, was crazy. And so, you know, I met with the Parks Department and the cops about it, and they're like, you know, she's driving us crazy too. Just try to placate her, do whatever you want. And so, you know, we tried to be nice to her, and she was just angry grandma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How did it end up that you guys not only were allowed by the city to stay, but that now you're kind of like considered to be a crown jewel of the city's parks?
So
how'd you go from basically squatters to a crown jewel?
Exactly, yeah. It's a good story, how we went from squatters to being solidified and recognized with the city and appreciated. When we first started out, it was all under the radar. We knew that that's $1 million piece of property, and it's totally out in the open. So most of the time BMX trails are hidden off in the woods, you know, and only BMXers go there. This is in the middle of the city, very visible, so everyone shows up there. Every day you go, like, there's all different kinds of people coming. So how that grew was, we were always under the radar, worried about the liability of the trails getting plowed by the city. And I kind of reached out when I moved here to some of the folks at PARD, like Joe Diaz, Alberto Perez, Ruben Olivo, and just gave them my contact information if they had any problems. So, you know, if a couch shows up, people dump things down there. So we'll pick the couch up, put it on a jump, and start riding it. And then I'd get a call and like, hey, Moon, what's going on with this couch at the trails? I'm like, oh, someone dumped it, we're riding on it, feel free to take it. So I kind of fit into that role of mitigator between, okay, we don't want to work with the city, but they need someone to talk to down here to explain this. And so that was a thing for 15, 20 years. Was we were on our own, under the radar. We really tried to make sure nobody got hurt because someone sues the city, that's going to knock that out. So we've had a lot of people have really horrific injuries down there, but nobody's ever sued the city. And it's because the riders know it's inherently dangerous, and we build the jumps ourselves. But in the past 5 years, we've been fortunate enough to work with Austin Parks Foundation, Colin Wallace and John Rooney and Kathleen Manello and Lady Ann, and all those people are great, and they helped expand our relationship and got us to become an Adopt a Park group. So we adopted Duncan Park, and in doing so, we're able to use their sponsored fund account. So we're like under their nonprofit umbrella, and we're tax exempt, and so that really kind of lit a fire into working with the city more and being very transparent and cooperating with them for greater goals.
Yeah. How would you explain what Austin Parks Foundation does for somebody that didn't know anything about it?
They support the park system in Austin, Texas, and help facilitate park growth and community usage of the parks. Mm-hmm. So we've been really fortunate to have that organization come down and accept what we do and say, hey, we like what you guys are doing, we want to help you out, and here's how we can do it. The nature of our group, nobody really wants to go do homework and go to meetings and be official on paper and all that stuff. So it's a challenge. It's outside of our comfort zone or our skill set or something like that. But they've made it really easy to work with them and help reach our goals. I was overwhelmed with the support and opportunities that they've given us. And so it's turned into something really good.
Cool. So,
can I get a sip of water real quick?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, sir.
I'll go ahead and let you drink the water. One of the things that we've been kind of tasked with, so this video is going to show at the Party for the Parks, which is like a big kind of fundraiser for the Austin Parks Foundation in October. And we want to be able to have people that are watching this, frankly, wealthy people that are wanting to invest in the city, understand how their money that they're going to donate to Austin Parks Foundation can help their city or help people put down roots.
Right.
How would you say money helps a place like 9th Street? I know it seems very obvious.
Yeah.
It may not be obvious for some people.
I think, donors and money help facilitate the park system by allowing them to operate and grow. Unfortunately nowadays everything is about money. Even if it's just an open park with grass and trees, you got to take out the trash and provide seating and clean it up and all those things. So money allows them, to continue basic maintenance. But people donating to the park system, and specifically 9th Street, allows the volunteers that are passionate about that park to reach their goals. And people that are passionate about parks want to encourage other people within community to use those parks. The world is taken over with concrete and cars, and there's very little remote native places left. So a lot of people recognize that and need a place to get back into nature, even if it's just a couple of acres, with a couple of trees surrounded by skyscrapers. Without donations from people, Austin Parks Foundation wouldn't exist, and you wouldn't have as many parks. It would be run down, and people are passionate about the parks, and the Austin Parks Foundation allows those people to pursue their passion, and that's all for the better of the community.
Yeah, awesome. A little bit of it, may not seem like it's on topic, but it kind of is. What do you think, when people complain about Austin, what are the things that they typically complain about? And what I'm kind of building up to is like how parks are an antidote to the things that people complain about.
Right. I think, most people's complaint about Austin is it's too crowded and the rent's too damn high. There's too much traffic, things like that. But people don't complain about there not being enough fun stuff to do. And so that's one of the things that parks add. There's so many diverse parks in Austin, and it's so beautiful, and get you out in nature and away from people and away from the concrete. But then there's so many other different parks that allow you to follow your passion. So there's skate parks and, you know, mountain bike trails and swimming areas. And so that's what makes Austin great, is the parks and the fun things to do. And parks are free, you know. Most of the time, if you're gonna have fun, it's gonna cost you some money. So, you know, people donating their money is allowing other people to have fun without having to spend their money, and that's a huge draw for the town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. So let's cut and re-roll and re-slate, and then I'll just ask the last question.
You get right with it? Yeah, speed.
Todd, take 2 coming, Mark.
All right, cool. Okay, thanks. Yeah, so I guess the last thing is just like, I didn't ask you to introduce yourself and tell me what your role is with 9th Street Park.
I'm Todd Moon, and I work at 9th Street BMX jumps at Duncan Park in Austin, Texas. I don't think I really have a role, you know.
You don't have a fancy title?
No, we don't do that. You know, originally I was a rider, and then I was a digger, and you know, over the years I clocked in and paid my dues down there, so I was lucky enough to have a little say in the direction of how the trails went. And then as we started working with the city and the Parks Department more, I was kind of like a liaison. And then as we got a grant and worked under the nonprofit and we organized a group for meetings to get everyone's input, I was, I don't know, kind of like a director, or trying to get people's input and have a voice for the whole group. And I think at this point in 9th Street's history, I'm more of a diplomat. I'm trying to smooth things out between people and encourage people to use the park and explain what the park's about. So I'm lucky I've worn a lot of different hats down there, and it's been a really cool ride. Real
Awesome.
lucky.
Cool. Awesome. That's all I've got. Mackenzie, would you mind taking a picture?
Sure.
Like a big wide shot where we got everybody?
Yeah.
Even Kenny.
Even Kenny.
If
We
you
have
can.
to be in front of the camera now.
Are you going to come to the party for the parks, do you think?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Did you come last year?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think it'll be at Republic Square Park.
Okay.
which
Yeah,
is
right by the trails.
Pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, that's the one right down the road with the white
Yeah,
pavilion thing.
yeah, super old. I think Austin was founded there. actually.
Really?
I think that was where the city of Austin became the city.
There's some- there's
So,
a-
all right, well, thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.